And I'm Laverne.
Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Cooking Crave. Today we are making a unique dish. It's Mexican style lasagna, and it's a good take on lasagna with a Mexican twist.
It's very simple. It's not a complicated dish at all. So we're starting with 1.5 cups browned hamburger. And then now we're going to add 1 package of the taco seasoning.
And does any taco seasoning work? Because there's different flavors you can get up there if you want spicier too.
That's right. Now I do have a hot and spicy one because I thought, well, with Mexican flavoring you want it a little spicier. So
okay.
I did choose the hot and spicy, but it's just to whatever you like. And now we put in a teaspoon of seasoned salt. And again, just any brand will do. We're going to sprinkle that in there. And then we're going to just mix that up a little bit. Now the recipe calls for 2 cans of tomato sauce. So we're going to pour our tomato sauce in there.
Now this is a recipe that I found in a cookbook a couple years back, and I really like Mexican food and I like Italian food, and it was something that I'm not very adventurous a lot of times trying new recipes until I've tasted it in other people's cooking, but this is something that I tried, and I had my parents over for dinner and my dad really liked it, and if my dad likes something then mom ends up cooking it more.
Okay. So we added the 2 cans of tomato sauce, and they're the 8-ounce cans. Now I'm going to add 4 ounces of diced green chilies.
Okay. And is that a hot style, or did you use a mild?
It says mild on here. And again, you can get the hotter ones or mild. And I figured with the taco seasoning being I chose the hot, I was going to go with the milder chilies. And that. So we're going to just blend this in here. Once we got that all stirred up and blended, we're going to leave it simmer for about 10 minutes uncovered.
Okay.
And this way the sauce will cook in with the hamburger, and if you cover it, the steam from the lid will make extra liquid, and you don't want it real runny. You want it fairly thick, so when you're spooning it onto your lasagna, it'll just be thicker.
Okay.
It calls for 2 eggs, so I'm going to break 2 eggs into our bowl here.
And this is the mixture that goes in between the meat?
Yes.
That we're making now? Okay.
Yes. So it asks for 2 eggs. And it asks that you just kind of beat up the eggs a little bit. So we'll just use a little whisk and blend them a little. And now we're going to add our ricotta cheese. It asks for 1 cup ricotta cheese.
And this is a lot smoother cheese than a cottage cheese.
Right, yeah. So just mix that in there with your eggs.
And you want to mix this really well till it's blended?
Yes, just blend that well, and that's all you need to do. Okay. And this way too, with the eggs mixed in with the ricotta cheese, it makes it a little bit thinner, and it's going to be easier to spread over your
tortillas.
Your tortillas there. So we'll set that aside, and let's just mix that a little bit here.
And that's cooking up good.
Yeah, yes. Now we're going to take a 9x13 glass baking pan, and I'm going to spray it lightly. And any cooking spray will do. And it asks for 10 corn tortillas. So we're going to layer 5 of them on the bottom here. And that last one we're just going to tear in half and make it fit for the bottom of that pan, just like that. So
great.
There, let's just, and our hamburger here is been simmering for a little while, so it's going to be ready here in just a few minutes.
Now, this is a nice meal. What would you suggest having with it as a side? Would you just make like a Caesar salad, or what would your suggestions be to go with this meal?
Being we have our hamburger and the season, I think a nice salad would work. Caesar salad, just a tossed salad, you know, just, or even a broccoli salad of, you know, any kind of vegetables would work.
Okay.
You know, just whatever. But I think a tossed salad would really be a nice finishing touch. And as you can see, I used my hamburger or my potato masher with the hamburger, and it's really made the hamburger really fine in a nice smooth, you know, mixture. It's not, you don't have a lot of lumps and that. It's just pretty much evenly mixed.
And something like that in a dish like this where you're making layers, I can see where when you would want your hamburger to be smaller pieces so that it actually spreads nicer and it actually goes farther than if you use big chunks.
Yes, I think so. I mean, that just makes it, you know, more eye appealing too. So
yes.
Okay. Now then, the recipe says we're going to we put the corn tortillas in here, and we're going to spread some of our meat mixture here on top first.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn that off and just have a spoon there, and about half of the mixture is what you're wanting.
It certainly does have a Mexican flavor smell to it. Mm-hmm. It smells wonderful.
And because of the corn tortillas, it really goes quite quickly. You're not having to cook your lasagna noodles and get them drained and that, because that is time consuming. Okay, now we've spread the hamburger mixture in here, and I'm going to go ahead and just, you can use canned tomatoes or fresh tomatoes. I like to use fresh tomatoes if I'm going to just layer it on top of the hamburger. If I'm going to use canned tomatoes, I like to put it in with the meat mixture, and it's just a matter of preference. You can do either way. Doing it this way, you just add a little bit more color to your dish. So now I'm going to there. Now we're going to do half of our ricotta cheese mixture.
I can see where at different times of the year where fresh tomatoes, if you have your own garden, you would want to have the fresh tomatoes, but in the wintertime when you might not have that access, canned tomatoes are probably just going to be an easier convenience for you.
Right, and you know, sometimes in the wintertime your tomatoes just do not have that good flavor, and doing canned tomatoes works nicely. But by the time you come to March and April, you kind of forgot how good homegrown tomatoes are. So the ones that you get in the store will probably pass. But
right.
You know, once you're used to the
well, and then
fresh
one thing
ones.
About canned tomatoes, you can get different flavors of canned tomatoes too if you want to have a little more zip to it as well.
Yes.
That would be an option for you.
Now next, the recipe calls for about 10 ounces of Monterey cheese, and that's probably equal to about 2.5 cups. There, we need to put the other layer of tortillas on here. And actually I've got a couple extra from the packet, so I'm just going to use that, and I've layered 6 on here. It makes it, covers that very nicely. So let's put the rest of our mixture on there.
Yeah, so especially when you get that hamburger on the corn, you really start smelling that Mexican flavor.
Yeah. And this is a dish that you can make ahead of time. You can, it freezes nicely also. So you can make it ahead of time and actually freeze it. And if you do make it ahead of time and you haven't baked it first, you want to make sure that you let it unthaw completely before you bake it.
Okay.
Now, if you're making that full recipe and maybe you have a smaller family that you may not need that whole dish of lasagna for your meal and want to freeze a little bit afterwards, that'll work nicely too.
Okay.
And then you can just heat that up in the microwave.
Or you can see if you have 2 smaller pans, you can make one and freeze one too with this recipe.
And you're just 2, 8x8s would work really pretty good.
Definitely.
So we're going to finish putting the rest of the tomatoes on here. And we'll just spread them out a little evenly here. Okay.
All right.
Now we're going to...
Got some very nice color going on there.
Yeah. Now when I bought the package or the container of ricotta cheese, it was 15 ounces. The recipe asks for 1 cup, which is like 8 ounces there. So if you don't have anything else you're going to use your ricotta cheese for, I would just go ahead and use all the cheese in your dish.
Okay.
Because there's no reason to let that go to waste.
And a little bit of extra. I mean, that's not going to make the dish soggy or anything.
No,
by adding a little bit more.
It just gives you a little bit more cheesy flavor, which is good. That's what makes lasagna and that extra special. Just that little extra cheese that the recipe doesn't call for. So now we're going to finish layering it with the Monterey cheese. The recipe does call for the Monterey. It is a little bit different than your mozzarella. Your mozzarella is a little milder flavor. So, and again, you could certainly use mozzarella cheese versus your Monterey Jack. So it's just, again,
what you may have in your own refrigerator.
Right. If you have that and that's what you want to use, it's going to work well. So now what we do is we're going to put it in the oven and bake it at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes, or just till it's nice and bubbly.
Okay.
So we'll just take that over to the oven and put that in there. Okay, and we're going to set the timer. Okay, our buzzer went off for the Mexican lasagna, so we're going to take that out. And it's very hot, so make sure you have some good pot holders. And so we're going to just carry it right over.
That cheese is just melted, wonderful on there.
Nice and bubbly and all that, so it's ready to go. It's good to leave it set probably for about 5-10 minutes before you actually cut it and serve it, so that it doesn't fall apart so easily. But just like you can see, that cheese is nice and bubbly, and that little bit of tomato gives that a little extra color there. And so we're going to be ready to serve it here. Let's see.
All
okay.
Right.
And
you see the layers in there.
Yep, you see your layers of meat and the cheese and your tomato in there. And what a finishing touch would be is just to add a tossed salad, maybe lettuce, tomato, and use your favorite dressing on there. And you have just a great meal.
Sounds great. And again, this is the Mexican style lasagna. And I want to thank Laverne for showing us how to make this dish today and for joining us on Cooking Crave. And if you have a recipe that you would like to submit, please go to our website at Consolidated, www.ctctel.com, and submit your favorite recipe for us to prepare here on the Cooking Show. And we'd like to thank you for joining us, and have a great day.